Yeah, welcome to everybody that's tuning in to the webinar, and looking forward to talking and explaining Volt's business and strategy. And part of that process, I'll just get this shared screen working fully.
Yep, all good. We can see your screen now.
So look, and thanks to Spark Plus for the opportunity as to present. And yeah, we've done a couple of these presentations over the last period of time, and we've been progressing through with our strategy. One important thing, and no doubt there's been other presenters talking about ESG and sustainability, and that's an important part of our plans as well. And there'll be some work undertaken or more information, I guess, provided in relation to our plans and strategies around our ESG policies and plans going forward. The corporate overview, won't spend a lot of time on this, but basically, our market cap's around the $85 million mark. I think when you look at comps, we are very cheap compared to the assets that we hold, and I think the developing or evolving implementation of our strategy. So we have a small board, but pretty experienced, and a pretty strong, supportive shareholder base made up of a number of high net worth individuals, including the chairman, who's the major shareholder and has recently been participating in capital raisings, and is a strong supporter of the company and its strategy. Volt proposition, value proposition is basically stemming from the fact that we have, a large scale project in Tanzania, a large scale and producing asset in Ukraine, and we have a strategy to build out our downstream processing opportunities or facilities in both Europe and also in the United States. So looking to develop integrated battery material supply chains, which we think will deal with a number of issues that probably exist in a lot of supply chains at the moment, but we think our strategy is the appropriate one and can actually facilitate Volt becoming a significant player, if not one of the larger players in the graphite supply chain. One of the few ASX listed graphite producers currently, picked up a lot of experience with the ZAVALIEVSKY business, being an operating business for over 80 years. So, and they currently sell products into Europe, into traditional markets. So there's existing customer bases, supply chains, and a number of other operating benefits we get from that. It's a turnaround asset though, so there's further improvements, in fact some fairly simple ones that we can make to improve the performance of that business, but also utilising the graphite from that product to build out our downstream strategy. Membership of two of the key battery materials alliances, the European Battery Alliance and the Raw Materials Alliance, which are sponsored, if you like, by the European Union and Commission. So membership of those provides a number of benefits. And we also have some gold exploration in Guinea, right near PDI, who just announced a massive or a pretty good first up mineral resource of 3.5 million ounces as their first resource estimate, and we surround that project. But I won't talk a lot about the gold projects. Our plan is to look at opportunities to divest those into a pure gold company or business, and we'll revert back to being a pure graphite play. But nevertheless, we think there's significant significant value in those gold assets. So our three key sort of businesses that we've been working on are the acquisition, which is, well, I shouldn't say acquisition, we now own 70% of ZAVALIEVSKY Graphite, and it's been a couple of months now. We've been sort of working through our change of control and operational management and a few other sort of aspects of that business as we progress our downstream processing discussions in Europe as well. We have our large-scale BUNYU project, which is being developed in 2 stages. So we're currently in advanced fund discussions to put together the $40 million required for the stage 1 development of BUNYU before it moves pretty quickly into a much larger stage 2 project, which has pretty significant economic value, benefits. So you can see at the base there that from a PFS scale about the size of what stage 2 would be, we've had NPVs of close to $890 million average EBITDAs of $195 million. So still advancing through that, but I think once we get our stage 1 funding out the way, funding and moving through to stage 2 will be significantly easier. And I've mentioned about the gold assets just recently. We do have some exploration results which will be announced soon from the Auger program that we've been conducting. So it's a bit of news flow on the gold side as well coming up. In terms of graphite market, it's what we're doing is basically we have a product or products that can be delivered into all parts of the market. So spherical graphite, which is basically for lithium-ion batteries as battery anode material, expandable graphite, which is mainly utilised in, foils, flame retardant building materials and other applications, and then your basic refractory and metallurgical uses such as refractory furnace linings and steel making recarburizers. So we can supply products into all parts of the market. I guess for now we'll just focus on the lithium-ion battery side of things with battery anode material. You can see the EV sales chart here, and one of the benefits of having a project in Europe and looking at or planning to move downstream into battery anode material in Europe on an integrated supply chain basis is the EU is the biggest EV market globally, followed by China and then the US. And all 3 of these markets are forecast to expand quite significantly. So in our strategy, we're looking at the EU and US as being key areas for our plans. And we also think that the US, with the Biden administration currently in place, we should see the US actually expand its EV sales even further from what's forecast there. But nevertheless, pretty significant growth. And I think those 2 markets are key to our strategy. So graphite demand forecast to grow 7 times by the end of this decade. When you think that we've got 9 years to basically come up with a 7-fold increase in supply to meet that 7-fold increase in demand, then that's a pretty massive expansion in graphite requirements. We have 2 large scalable projects in Tanzania and Europe, and we think we're positioned nicely to be a key participant in that expanding supply side. But with those sort of numbers, you should also expect to see some increase in pricing over this period of time, as well, as I think supply will struggle to keep up with the demand requirements, certainly at times. And as usual with commodities, you probably get sequences of slight oversupply and then undersupply and prices moving accordingly. But nevertheless, the outlook for this decade is really strong and positive, and clearly shows that graphite is one of the key minerals for the electric vehicle and lithium-ion battery manufacturers. So in looking at our strategy in relation to battery anode material, this graphic's basically showing our 2 mining projects or mining operations in the case of Ukraine. You can see this is also including a forecast out to 2030 as to the actual mix of battery anode, EV markets and lithium-ion cell manufacturing markets. So China at 60%, Europe at 24%, and the USA at 11% are the key sort of markets globally. So we think, adopting an approach to look at Europe and USA, given that China is a pretty well-developed graphite producer and already has produces all of the battery anode material globally that's currently used in the lithium-ion battery manufacturing. We see opportunities to create a bit of diversification into Europe and the US and supply products that aren't, that offer an alternative to Chinese supply, and offer some other benefits around logistics and supply chain issues that have crept into the market, which I'll just cover off on the next slide, actually. So we see some benefits we think that will be captured or provided, in some cases, mitigating certain issues that are currently in the market. So what an integrated supply chain, all the way from mining to the end user or customer, is providing is that we can mitigate supply disruption. We're seeing that currently in, out of COVID, that there's been some pretty significant impacts on the supply chains globally. We've seen transport costs, particularly shipping costs, go up nearly 7-fold. So under those sort of circumstances, a project like ZAVALIEVSKY, which is located in Europe, supplying European lithium-ion battery cell makers, makes incredible sense. And of course, it's got an existing supply chain, whether it's road, rail, even river transport, exporting out of the Black Sea into Southern Europe, and potentially across to North America if, we see some requirements to facilitate the development of our North American strategy by using ZAVALIEVSKY material to start with. In the longer run, we see BUNYU as being the supply source for the US. Pardon me. You get a consistent management of your ESG policies and principles across the whole supply chain, which for end users and financiers is becoming, and governments for that matter, is becoming more and more important. So in fact, for stakeholders right across the board, so communities and others, proof of origin, which is an important aspect of end users understanding where their products are coming from, particularly with an African-based project. You want to understand that there's no issues around, slave labour or child labour being involved in the production of your materials, which we could certify that. Consistent QA/QC. I've mentioned diversification of supply away from, at the moment, pretty much dominant or 100% Chinese supply. And the ability to lower, manage your carbon emissions across your whole supply chain. So there'll be a focus on that. But obviously for, again, European production or mining and processing and downstream processing all occurring in Europe gives a much, much lower carbon footprint than products being produced on the other side of the world and then being shipped across in containers, which shipping does contribute pretty significantly to carbon emissions as well. So we think there's a whole number of benefits that comes from our strategy in relation to our 2 mine developments and our downstream processing strategies, which we think are unique to Volt. That's the addressable market in Europe as it is and as it's becoming in the near future. You can see down the bottom there, we're forecasting from 2020 about 26 gigawatts of capacity. So about a 20-fold increase to 500 gigawatts by 2030. And that's where you get to see those other metrics about the increase in battery materials required to service this market. So we'll be basically on the doorstep of most of those lithium-ion battery manufacturing facilities. So we see fantastic opportunities for ZAVALIEVSKY to be a key player in Europe in the graphite and battery anode material supply side. Pretty significant facilitation, as I've said, by the EU in relation to 2 alliances that have been created and sponsored by them. The European Battery Alliance and the Raw Materials Alliance are pretty much both focused on battery material supply. And well, I shouldn't just say supply, but also the lithium-ion battery manufacturers, the EV manufacturers, and then the, as they call it, the circular economy, so recycling of battery materials and reuse in the lithium-ion battery supply chain. That'll take quite a while to develop, but nevertheless, it's a key part, I think, of the overall strategy in relation to battery technologies and EVs. So, so significant benefits here from, just technical introductions and support, introductions to potential customers, and importantly, finance platforms as well. So introduction to potential financiers that have been encouraged by the EU and by this I mean development banks and other banks and investment funds in Europe to facilitate the development of the battery supply chain in Europe. EU and Ukraine just recently signed a strategic partnership, so this is another key element and certainly benefits our Ukraine project. We're the only, as far as I'm aware, we're the only Australian mining company operating in the Ukraine. So it's got a fair amount of attention and focus in Europe and in Ukraine because of that. We see, again, the opportunity for assistance and facilitation by, from governments down to help with the development of our graphite project and also our downstream strategy. We've been doing a bit of work in the battery anode material area, obviously, and this is just a slide on our flow sheet thinking. It's a bit innovative. We've gone from a conventional processing sequence up the top there, which is micronization, spheronization, purification, and then coating from the graphite products made at a mine. So these are the 4 processing steps to make a coated SPG. So we've inverted this and put purification at the front. There's a number of benefits attached to that in that, particularly as you get through the next couple of stages, you can actually make products that are addressing certain market requirements in addition to other material that can be used for the coating process and final production of battery anode material. So you do get waste out of these processes. So purifying up front actually creates some high value products that can be sold for other uses and improve your revenue and your profitability or margin outcomes. So that's been a good piece of work. And we're doing further work on that battery anode material flow sheet and starting to flesh out our design and planning around these downstream facilities in both the US and the EU. ZAVALIEVSKY is an operating project. As I said, it's a turnaround asset, but it's a long life graphite business that has a large resource base. And hopefully soon we'll be able to make a release to the market that's in accordance with the ASX's requirements on foreign resources and reserve estimates. But I can tell you that there is significant mine life left here, and it's got a sufficient quantity to look at expansion and increasing production of graphite in Europe to deal with the downstream demand that's developing and will continue to develop over the course of not just this decade, but over the next couple of decades probably. It sells products into existing markets and already makes quite a high purified graphite product, one of the few in the outside of China that actually does this. So they make a 99.5% TGC, can make probably in the order of about 3,000 tonnes a year of this product. Sells for a premium because of its high levels of purity. And so they're already doing one of the process steps that we spoke about in purification as part of battery anode material supply. They also have a small micronization circuit, so they sell small, micronized products into the market as well. And again, that's one of the processing steps in battery anode material. They sell to a number of customers, and there's a bit of their more recent sales split on the right-hand side there, but dominantly European. And you see across a range of countries with end users located through both Central Europe and into Eastern Europe. A bit of a slide on the layout. I won't spend a lot of time through because probably going to run out of time soon on this presentation, but the overview on ZAVALIEVSKY is, it's got a long mining license there, currently out to November 2035, so plenty of mine life. And then from there, you would expect to get further renewals based around the resource and size and mine life. Pretty low strip ratio, just using conventional open pit methodologies for mining. Great transport infrastructure being right in Europe. Long life mine and lots of experience acquired with buying an existing business. We also acquired an interest in freehold land where the plant's located, which is useful for expansions and development of other options, which may include the location of the downstream processing facility. Just a quick layout picture there and description of the processing that's undertaken. Given the nature of winter in Ukraine, instead of the open sort of aspects of plant developments in Australia, where you'd see a lot of pipes and tanks and mills and various other bits of equipment, here it's all get locked away in buildings because in winter it gets pretty cold, and so you've got to be protected from the elements. Tanzania, we've spoken a bit about that. This is getting very close to being development funded now, or at least receiving an offer of funding from Development Bank. Big project, but being done in a small stage to start with, which is just more bankable and easy to manage risks with developing a smaller project and then looking to expand to the much larger stage 2. It's in a great location, great access to infrastructure. It's got roads running through the plant site, sealed roads to a deep water port at Mtwara. Long life project. Current resources are well over 400 million tonnes. When you're feeding about 4 million tonnes per annum in stage 2, basically, you still have a mine life of about 100 years. Recently had some good test work results out of BUNYU as well. This is all related to lithium-ion battery cell testing. So we nearly finished this test work program, which is cycle testing of the material. It's been going extremely well, but along the way, we've had some really good information provided to us out of this test work program. And what it shows, I guess the bottom line down there is that BUNYU flake meets all the design criteria for battery anode material for lithium-ion batteries. So it's a pretty key outcome, but there's a number of other benefits and products that can be manufactured along the way. So Volt's position in the graphite space, I think, is setting us up to be a very large-scale producer of graphite products, utilising this this strategy of mine to customer. We think we can manage the supply chain, well, the production and supply chain, in a way that would be very attractive to the cell makers and battery makers and the EV manufacturers and other customers outside of that is, I think, pretty compelling. So got a very experienced management team, and we're looking forward to pushing on with our development strategies. So with that, I will close the presentation and